Excellent. So, welcome. Our second official long format episode. Today we were really thinking about what we were going to record, and the first region and wines that came to both of our heads individually and then together was the Loire Valley. I think these two wines that we're going to be sort of opening up today and just having a chat about, and the region as a whole, was what really, at least for me, brought my love to wine and some really understanding, especially with whites.
Definitely for me, especially the Loire Valley for the white wines. I think it's like the first thing that I'm thinking about when I think about the wine. And I think like as sommelier, the first question from everybody is like, what's your favorite wine? What's your favorite white or red? And for the white especially, but even like wine in general, white from the Loire, Chenin is like, probably the most important that I got with personally for me the Riesling from Alsace or from Germany. But definitely Chenin have been like really important in my sommelier story. And
so today we have, it's not a Chenin, but it is Pierre Menard, Leica, which is a Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire, from Anjou specifically. Both of these wines today are Anjou. And this wine is really cool. It's going to touch on a lot of points that we're going to talk about today, and not just in terms of sort of this second coming of Loire and Anjou specifically, but also of sustainable farming, of younger producers, and of some really cool history and an old history within this pretty special region. Now this is 100% Sauvignon Blanc from Anjou. These were planted within the 60s. The name Leica refers to the dog that got thrown into space, unfortunately. But the same year that these vines were planted, 2021 as well. What do you think straight away?
It's pretty floral and vegetal.
And I feel like when we talk about Sauvignon Blanc, it's such a, first of all, really polarizing space. Of course, you have your very classical New Zealand, Australian Sauvignon. That is,
and also Sancerre. I think
Sancerre,
for the historic, like Sancerre would represent like the biggest idea of with Marlborough, I guess, from New Zealand.
I mean,
so just to give the context, because Loire Valley it's such a big region. I think first we can talk a bit of the Loire Valley because it's so big and really hard to understand everything. When we start from Nantes to the completely west part on the coast, Atlantic coast, so with a really oceanic climate, and then we can go really close to Burgundy, so it's almost 1,000 kilometers. But because definitely Loire Valley is really huge. So of course today we're gonna split and we're gonna talk especially about Anjou and Saumur. So Anjou today with the white, and a bit later we're gonna talk about Saumur with another beautiful red wine. Can you present a bit the winemaker maybe?
So Pierre Menard, he's a very new, what we like to call new age winemaker. You see over the last 20 or 30 years, sustainable and biodynamic viticultures come back into the fold. And I think throughout the 80s and 90s, we went to this point where everything became mechanical and larger produce. And I think
the industrialization.
Industrialization. And we lost a lot of some really fantastic terroir with that.
Personality even.
Exactly. So this wine is managed by his family. It's the epitome, or this really cool, and why I brought it to this really cool style of wine that is organic, sustainable viticulture. He does see a little bit of old oak, but it's farmed by lunar cycles on very old vines from the 60s. As I said, you don't see that very often, and on a really cool style of soil, which is silex. But this is a very pure expression of Anjou, but also Sauvignon Blanc, which is not planted as much anymore, though. It's falling off a lot within, but some of these older vines can really push through. So I think straight away for me, the nose is just, again, you still get that passion fruit and grapefruit citrus, which is very classical.
Exotic part, which is like really classical from the Sauvignon, but in the mouth it's really straight, pretty lean, and I have to say pretty fat. I've been surprised because the nose is really fresh, floral, really is like also some stone fruit, like a nice apricot, really rich. But the mouth is really fresh but rich. It's well balanced. I love that. I get like the utilization of the old oak, really bring this materials. I get the wine also have been aged on lees. You can really have a nice texture. It's more rich than what I thought, because most of the time the Sauvignon is a really light body wine. Also, we didn't talk that much about the terroir of Anjou, but it's like some tuffeau, so some limestone, definitely. Tuffeau is a really white soil, white calcaire in French, tuffeau. There is also, of course, in Anjou, it's really important to talk about the black Anjou,
Yes.
which is
Anjou
like
Noir.
really, the definition is like the presence of schists, so a really dark and black soil. We really give some deep roots for the wines to bring a high minerality. For example, we just bring a bottle. We will not open it today, but another winemaker that we appreciate a lot and that we are working with at the restaurant together, Domaine Belargus. This one is like really implanted in the black Anjou. So with some schist, really interesting to bring such a deepness in the wine, which is incredible. And we really find the nice definition of the minerality for me. Here it's completely different. We are more on the fruits and on the generosity
Yes.
of the wine, which is great.
And I think it really brings this balance. We had a tasting with Domaine Belargus last week, I believe. And his range of wines, he makes the same winemaking and the same viticultural practices within his vineyards.
Yeah, exact same vinification.
Yeah.
But like 10 different cuvées.
And they're completely separate. You know,
It's mind-blowing.
You could sit there and you could blind would be 10 different producers.
Completely. And even like different location.
Yes,
And
exactly
it's
right.
crazy because it's like at, I don't know, 30 kilometers or no, even way less,
Way
like 10
less.
kilometers around. The next wine will be completely different, but it's really nice. I think it's cool to present like a nice presentation of the region. But then I think for thin and high, the wine that we like sometimes are a bit different. For example, the next wine will be out of the appellation. It will be in Vin de France, which is really interesting because some really cool winemakers can just, as we said during the first episode, they just do have a bit more freedom when they're out of the appellation. And yeah, I think it's really interesting to keep this liberty about the wine. It gives that kind of beautiful wines.
I think especially talking about this wine is Pierre Menard has this absolute freedom. He sits right at the top of somewhat of a continental climate, but it allows him to really practice very organically. We were laughing just before we were filming this, just having a little read, and the only additives that he puts within his soils are some herbal teas, and he practices a lot of trimming, a lot of very lean winemaking approaches. So he doesn't focus much on yield. He focuses more on really ripening these grapes and putting them at their best point.
Or organic or biodynamic can look a bit really far away because we don't really understand what the point of it for like literally the quality of the wine, what the different like in the glass, because at the end that's what the most important for most of the people. Of course, for the winemaker it's different because it's like literally living among his wines, and it's more important for him to not use any chemical products. But it will also definitely change the final product.
Absolutely.
For me, like the best example is literally the wild yeast, because it will definitely change the taste of the wine because the taste will be unique. So the wild yeast are like present on the skin of the grapes, and you have to know that for most of the more industrial wines, they will add some chemical yeast which have been developed and selected to sometimes bring some specific taste. The yeast itself will really help to bring some different taste that we can look for. So like that every year we're gonna find like the same taste every year on the same glass. So we can talk a bit about this vintage 2021. 2021 definitely have been like the easiest vintage for the winemakers in the Loire Valley specifically. Really wet vintage, some frost also during April. And like of course when it's so wet, sometimes it can dilute a bit the grapes and the quality of the juice. Here the quality is great, the volume is a bit lower. I know that the winemakers just had some difficulties with some disease in the vines. But someone told me, and I think it's really true, during the bad vintages you can really see the difference between the good and the less good winemakers.
And I think you can see it here. I mean, farming a single plot essentially is within this wine is not just allows a freedom as we talked before, but especially during these bad vintages allows it really express itself in, although it may not be the prime vintage and the prime winemaking standards, but this wine still really shows. And I think some of those frost there, you can almost see it within the glass. It's a little bit more restrained. That's still very flush and very balanced.
Definitely. Also, thanks to the organic and biodynamic way to work, the winemakers have to spend a lot of time among the vines. So they are probably more aware about all the diseases, all the problems, because they are like literally every day outside. And instead of treating the wine, they can prevent. And thanks to that, they can reduce a lot the damages from the disease. So it's also really important. So as you said, they will spray some tea decoction, or of course they can use a lot of things. I'm not so aware about all the different elements that they use, but it's most of the time some vegetal decoctions. I love this kind of wine because
and I think it's the approach, especially
such an
sulfur.
energy.
It's using when needed. Some of the most fantastic biodynamic producers will not refuse to use sulfur. They'll use sulfur when necessary to really protect their wine and protect their grapes and within the bottle. So a lot of it's just before bottling. They'll just add a tiny bit in just to really upkeep the wine during its aging standard. And at 2021, 4 years later, it's so young and even still a little bit closed off and go a lot longer.
I think this one could definitely go into a decanter for half an hour. It will not be a problem. Shall we talk a bit maybe about the different pairings that we could do with that kind of wine? Because definitely it's rich, it's aromatic. So of course it's from 100% Sauvignon, which is an aromatic grape variety. So it's pretty rich. So what would you like to eat to go with this wine?
Straight away, I think with Sauvignon, you see that greenness and that really this sort of just blanched asparagus, really fresh, salted, meets the high acid, but also some of that slight toughness and greenness of asparagus, especially as you get to the center, could be fantastic for me.
Definitely, yeah. I think when I try this wine, I think about my brother, with a chef in France, and I would love to see like pretty fat fish in ceviche, maybe just with a beautiful sauce. I think just really fresh sauce made with raw tomatoes, pepper, a nice olive oil to really balance a bit with the freshness and the light acidity of this wine, and to just add a bit of the fatness from this wine with this sauce. It could be great. Something really fresh with just a bit of yeast from lime. I think it could be nice as a starter.
And I think some of this almost tiny bit of metallic but robust characteristic that it has on the nose. I mean, for me, a well done mackerel, just butterflied out, really softly skin on. Just to match that, the acid's enough to cut through some of that strength of the mackerel and the fattiness. But just agree with that.
Even a walk like around the seaweeds could be interesting, just to bring a bit of saltiness, some iod to like refresh a bit the wine, because at the end it's like way more rich than what I thought.
From the nose, it's got heaps of acid and heaps of what you'd think is a very classical Sauvignon nose. But the mouth is opulent, it's complex, it's layered. We're sitting at,
temperature for me is perfect.
Temperature.
Yeah, I love it. I guess we're like in 14, 15? 14, I would like to say.
Yeah.
And it's perfect like that. Because for that kind of wine, I have to say sometimes that Sauvignon is a really tricky grape variety. I think it's a grape variety who really deserves a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of love at the end. Because you can make some wine, you can make some big volume with some Sauvignon, but sometimes the wine can be really exuberant, which is not like my favorite for the wines. And this one, it's aromatic, but it's really straight, it's well done. And the texture is here, which is really important and pretty rare, I have to say, for the Sauvignon. So I think like the vinification is really important, and the work like with the soil is really, really well done, because you got like beautiful quality of grape. We can even see it like even with the color and like with the cheers, they are really thick, which is impressive for a Sauvignon. And we could even think maybe there is a bit of new oak, but it's only old oak, like for the
3 to 8 years old oak, and you can definitely see that in the texture. Softens it out a little bit, and I think not dampens, but rounds out the aromats on the nose, because as you said, Sauvignon can be really punchy on the nose and could almost smell it from this far away.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is it's concise, and what I like to call racy with guests. It's from the nose. Very subtle and supple, but it's there and it knows what it wants, and it's very concise and it's complex, but in a way that it presents it in a very pleasant way on the nose.
So I think to give like a small conclusion about this wine, so can you remind us what was the price for this wine?
Around about that $80 mark, which is, I mean, a lot of people think it's very pricey for Sauvignon, but for what you're getting, I think not just winemaking standards, but also the age of the vineyard and just the winemaking as a whole.
Also, I think we're pretty far away from like a classic Sauvignon that you could have for the aperitif. Here, it's really for me a gastronomic wine.
Yes.
Really deserves a nice. I mean, for me, it's like to go all with a nice starter, or with a beautiful main course, because it's pretty rich enough. It's not easy to drink something after that. Another wine, you need like, or maybe a rich Chardonnay, but it's pretty rich. So you can't like go to something too light after that. Otherwise, it would be completely in the shade of this wine. But yeah, I think the price is fair. And also, again, I mean, we love the wine. So when we're making the selection, we're making a selection with most of the most beautiful piece of wine that we can find in the Loire Valley. So it's not like a classic wine. It's really a high quality with a passionate winemaker. So yeah, I think it's really fair. Beautiful. So you already said like 14 degrees would be nice for that kind of
14,
wine?
15 degrees are good. But just touching on what you said before, moving on to another wine, it's very reminiscent to me of Chenin. It's got the Chenin in terms of with pairings. It's got the texturality and the width. It's a little bit less of that chalk that you'll see sometimes within Chenin, and that slight reduction that you see in something like the elegance. But the acid's there to cut through some of the fat, but the opulence and texturality to match, especially with something, even fish, raw sauce, touch of capers can be fantastic.
Definitely. Even maybe, you know, like some olives to bring a bit of saltiness. I think to bring some saltiness can be nice.
I mean, it's cool. I mean, I think for you, the people listening, it's not just a testament to approaching what we call organic wine or biodynamic and sustainable wine with a grain of salt. I think it's more about learning and understanding winemakers that utilize these really individual and unique terroir and old vines in the best way possible. And approaching everything with these winemakers is just knowledge and understanding, and that's what we're here for, to give you these sorts of wines and to provide you with the ability to go, oh, Pierre Menard.
I think, as you said, like biodynamic and organic wine, it's like a global philosophy, which includes a lot of things for the winemaker. It's really important because, like, as we said, like they are literally living among the vines, and like it really makes sense to everyday walk into a more natural way, close to the nature. So that kind of winemaker, most of the time they got like an estate of, I don't know exactly for this one, but like a lot of hectares, but they're using only half of the hectares to put some vines, and the rest is like really for the biodiversity. Like that there is some presence of birds, of bugs, and like a lot of forests.
Yeah, and farms and vegetables, you know, you see within the vines, you see along the within what most tractors would go down with this, because it's all hand farmed. It's cabbage, it's carrots, it's all of these things that really enrich the soil.
So again, it's global. Most of the time, that kind of winemaker, they're also producing some honey, some eggs from the chicken. So it's something really global approach, which is really interesting. But it's not only for that; it will also change the quality of the wine, because as we said, it will include like a lot of personality, and we can really and definitely fit it into that kind of wine. It's like really unique wines, which is really nice, and I think it's both of us what we want to share, because it's not only like the philosophical approach, it will also change the taste, which is interesting for everybody.
And at the end of the day, it's enjoyable in the glass. It's very pleasant. As we said, those notes of that real citrus and exotic fruits that are really harnessed quite well and not exuberant, not over the top, and the palate that really matches. Definitely. Now onto the reds.
Definitely, I think it's a nice transition to go to the next wine.
全力决心，始于足下，来到武当山。